My name is Grace. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. I am the Market and Vendor Relations Manager here at Green City Market. Green City Market is based in Chicago. We have two outdoor market locations and one indoor market location. We are in Lincoln Park on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we are in Chicago's West Loop at Mary Bartlemy Park on Saturdays from 7 a.m. until, sorry, not 7, 8 a.m. 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. on Saturdays in West Loop. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen. And then, actually, before I share, I'm going to go into presentation mode so that it shares. Hmm.
You don't see it yet. There we go. It's coming.
Okay, let me though present.
Yeah.
Can you see it as a presentation or can you only
Now
see
we
the?
can. Just now.
Okay, just
We're
now?
good to
Okay,
go.
amazing. All right, thanks everybody. Okay, so preparing to manage an emergency. That is why I'm here today. Um, I, for better or worse, have managed through a few emergencies. I started as a program assistant and am now the market manager. So I have experienced emergencies both on the sort of staff level and now am working through them on a manager level. Also, I'd love to give a big shout out to Taylor Choi, who is an ILFMA board member, a prior staff member of Green City Market. She really is the one who created our emergency action plan and created this presentation. So huge shout out to Taylor. It is, some big old shoes to fill. Okay, so a little bit about Green City Market. We are a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. Our biggest sort of public facing flagship program is the market, what I'm going to be talking about today. We also do a lot with food access and edible education here in Chicago. We have a triple match program. We partner with Link Up Illinois to match SNAP customers' link dollars that they can then spend with farmers. It is a huge program. Majorly benefits our farmers as well as our shoppers. We are trying to secure the future of food in Chicago and everywhere. Now more than ever feels like a really important moment um, to be supporting farmers. And I'm assuming a lot of you come here with like from a farmers market background, so are also really passionate about supporting farmers. So thank you for all of your work. We value at Green City Market, we value sustainability, nourishment, equity, diversity, and connectivity. Our pillars being the farmer support, which is sort of the pillar that I am a part of, as well as an edible education pillar and a food access pillar. I will pause here just to check if there are any questions. And feel free to like pop questions in the chat if they come up throughout the presentation. I do not mind interruptions.
I can monitor the chat for you, Grace, and let you know if we see anything.
Perfect. Thanks, Janie. Okay, and then I'm curious with folks in the room, have any of you experienced an emergency? A weather emergency, a missing child, missing persons emergency, um, some kind of medical emergency. I'm curious, is there anybody in here currently that has experienced anything that they would like to share? Okay, Kathy from Batavia. Hey, Kathy. Last season we had quite a few storms during the market. Yes, Kathy, that is very relatable. We have also dealt with that. And we're going to be talking about that today. I would say weather emergencies are probably the most common emergency that I'm experiencing as a market manager. Um, cool. Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for sharing that, Kathy. Feel free if you have anything, we'll be talking about storms, and if anything, if you feel I missed anything, feel free to come off mute. Love the shares of all of the like on the ground experience that other market managers have. I think we all can really learn from each other, which is one of the things I love about ILFMA. All right, so you got to prepare. The best way to address an emergency is to address it before it's even happened. What's the saying? Fail to prepare and you prepare to fail. I think the planning ahead piece has led just to a lot of like comfort and confidence for me personally, and I think for my team as well, and hopefully for the farmers. At the beginning of the season, all of our farmers all of our farmers and vendors are given access to our emergency action plan and sign off on our emergency action plan before that first market. And I really think that that creates a spirit of confidence, hopefully for us as a market, but also for each other, that we all are kind of on the same page when it comes to emergencies. And I would love to, I think that's on the next slide. Yes. Okay. Y'all are gonna have access to our emergency action plan. So the goals of today, we are going to learn about resources to help you and your market prepare for an emergency. We're going to do some planning for interpersonal conflict, plan for medical emergencies and 911 related emergencies, such as like an active assailant. That would be a time you would call 911. And hopefully then equip your market to be prepared for emergencies and feel just, yeah, more confident as the manager, as a market employee, how to handle an emergency when they arise. All right, so I'm going to pop in the chat our the link to our emergency action plan, um, the emergency action plan in Green City Market. And again, huge shout out to Taylor Choi, who really created this emergency action plan. We've been building off of it throughout the years, but she really sort of laid the groundwork for us, for our market, as well as other markets within Chicago. And it's a wonderful, very thorough action plan. I invite you all to utilize it for your own building out of emergency action plans. And at the end, I will share my email. Please do not hesitate to reach out. I love talking shop. Would be happy to set up a meeting with any of you, because I think having an emergency action plan is really important, and I would love to help you if you don't, if maybe you're feeling intimidated by creating your own emergency action plan for your market. I'd be happy to workshop that with you. So be sure, if that's something you're interested, to take my email down at the end. All right, so resources. I am CPR and first aid trained through the Red Cross. We also require a few other market staff to be trained. And I would recommend looking into a Red Cross first training if you're a market manager. If you haven't been already, being CPR certified. We also talk about, you know, how to stop the bleed. That is discussed in the Red Cross first aid training that I took. And it just, again, really has created more confidence within myself. I think, too, the first time that you are having to encounter CPR, it's kind of comforting that it's, for me, I've been lucky that it's on a dummy. So the hope is that then if an emergency were to present itself, you're able to snap into action, having already practiced these hard skills on a CPR dummy with a trained professional at the Red Cross. For de-escalation trainings, this is NAMI in Chicago. There are also tons of online resources, YouTube videos to sort of go over de-escalation training. Because again, in a market, we're dealing with the public and situations occur. And I think it's really awesome to have some kind of training under your belt so that, again, the first time that you're having to think about these situations is not when you yourself are confronted with them. Um, yeah, so big recommendation for Red Cross. They do great trainings. Okay, and then for we're going to talk a little bit now about interpersonal conflict and de-escalation training. I would imagine that all of you have some kind of have encountered this if you're in the market space. I know I have. Um, I think it's key to know when it's time to walk away and when your presence is helpful, because there are times that like nothing you're going to be able to do or say is going to be help is going to like de-escalate the person. And unfortunately, there are times when the best thing you can do for the safety of yourself in the market is call 911. And I think the hope is that that is the last resort. Um, an example that I will use is I got to the market at 4:30 a.m. to start setup, to oversee setup, and there was some loud yelling in the corner of the park. And there was a very intoxicated man who began punching in the windshield of one of our vendors. And at that point, when there is the threat of physical violence, that is the time that you call 911. I think too, when someone's under the influence, it's harder to talk someone down. And yeah, the luckily the cops came and had a very like de-escalating uh take on the situation, and they were able to de-escalate it because I think that's another concern. Sometimes cops can escalate a situation. Um, so yeah, if it is not a situation where you think that you need to call 911, distract. So say that maybe there is some tension between a customer and a vendor. A good thing might be to just interrupt the situation and take the customer away from the vendor. Like, hey, let's go talk over here, or maybe I can get you a water. Like we have water at the info tent. Can I get you a free water? A great thing to do is to distract. Another thing, maybe delegate. If you need help, if you're trying to deal with a situation, very directly delegate what you need from a third party um, source. Document. I wouldn't recommend jumping to taking a video because, again, that can really escalate a situation. And this might be something to do after, but it can be helpful to take notes so that if you have to make an incident report or anything, you have things written down. Um, Check in with the target of this conflict, you know, after it can be nice either at the market to check in with somebody and be like, how are you feeling? That was intense. Come sit down. Can I get you some water? Um, really check in and make the person feel heard. And then also just like direct, speak really clearly with the perpetrator of this escalated or conflicted situation. And the ideal situation, I think, is to just remove somebody and to de-escalate. And I think a lot of times that really is just listening. And sometimes it means taking some heat. You might disagree with what's happening, but sometimes somebody just needs someone to yell at. And as a market manager, you might need to be that buffer and just kind of affirm, be like, yeah, I hear you. That would really frustrate me too. Even if that means lying to the person, that can really de-escalate a situation. Are there any questions here about interpersonal conflict or de-escalation? I think always distract when you can. All right, moving on. Plan. So, who is going to respond when you have an emergency? And you'll notice this is in our emergency action plan so that all of our staff and all of the vendors know who they're contacting. So, create a chain of like a chain of command for on-site and off-site. So, on-site, I am the number one person to contact. After me, it is our program director. And after our program director, it is the executive director. Every farmer's market looks different. We are under this larger nonprofit umbrella, so you have to sort of figure out what suits your market, but make sure everyone knows who is that on-site contact. And if that changes week to week, or you know, you take a weekend off, make sure all the vendors know who that person is stepping in as the on-site contact. I know at our market, we send a weekly newsletter. So that is how we communicate to our vendors who the on-site contact is for that week. So I'd recommend if that is something that you do, make sure to include who is the point person on site every market day. And then make a contact list. So that is going, all of the staff have each other's number, and then we make sure that we have all of the contact information of vendors as well as they have our contact information. Because that's another thing, like another emergency that could come up is a vendor doesn't make it to market for various reasons. You want to know that you can contact them to make sure they're okay. So make sure that you do have a contact list. Determine the best mode of communication. For us, it's call and text. Um, Internally with the team, it is walkie-talkie. But we make sure to let all of the vendors know the best way to contact us is call or text with our phone numbers. We will talk about this later, but we have like an emergency text service that we ask all of our vendors to be subscribed to, and that is only used in the case of emergencies. Otherwise, the best way to contact us is through phone and text. Again, just kind of some over communication here, but when we are onboarding vendors, we just make sure all of this is so clear. I usually have people save my number right then and there. I'm like, we are not leaving this call until I know that your number or my number is in your phone. Okay, and preparing for weather. This is a big one, Kathy, as you brought up. I think too, this is the one that I am dealing with most often. Um, we learned the hard way last year how quick things can change. Our Lincoln Park market is so close to the lake, and the weather by the lake can change, in what feels like the drop of a hat. It goes from being kind of a nice day, wind starts picking up, and suddenly a storm's on top of you. So we're really thinking about how can we like prevent that. Um, Something that we learned is to take forecasts seriously. I think I very naively sometimes you don't want to see that 40% chance of rain, and you might want to ignore it like, it's just 40%, it's not going to impact us. I think what I learned is that you have to take weather forecasts seriously. Download weather apps. We use the My Lightning tracker. I would recommend every market manager download that if you haven't already. It's a free app, and it sends like a notification to my phone if there is lightning within, I think I have it set to like 20 miles. So if there's lightning within 20 miles of the market, I get pinged. And once it hits that 20-mile radius, I decrease my warning radius to 15. So then if there's lightning within 15, well, and you'll see, I have it all listed out, but we have different thresholds for what we do as a market. But definitely download the My Lightning tracker, and then we also use the National Weather Service. Another thing to do when you're preparing for weather is have secure shelter locations. A tent, not a secure shelter. I don't care how well staked your tent legs are into the ground, that is not a secure shelter. And make sure that that is abundantly clear, and make sure to communicate to your vendors where that secure shelter location is. For us at Lincoln Park, it is the lobby of a hotel, and at West Loop, it is an extra space storage building. So you can get creative. Just make sure that the vendors know what that secure location is. Also make sure that that location knows that they are your secure location, so that they're not shocked if there's a storm and suddenly there's 50 vendors crowded in their lobby. Again, prepare your chain of execution. Make sure everybody knows who should be doing what on that chain, and preset your communications. Again, failure to prepare, you're preparing to fail. Okay, so we have sort of different differing language that we use. So we have a weather alert and a weather warning. The National Weather Service also has a weather alert and a weather warning. So if there's an alert, we're letting vendors know. I'm sending that out as early as Thursday in the newsletter. hey, there's a potential for storms on Saturday when we have our market, or there's a potential for storms on Wednesday when we have our market. Stay tuned in, be keeping an eye on your email, make sure that you're registered to our emergency text service. There is this alert. So we are kind of thinking ahead and preparing to either delay market start or there's a chance we're going to have to close early. I think too, giving vendors a heads up that this is a possibility really decreases frustration. Because there's nothing worse than, you know, packing up your truck with just like hundreds of pounds of gorgeous produce only for the market to be canceled. So I think too, setting expectations as realistically as possible, like your safety and the safety of the public is what's most important to us. And this week that may look like having to delay start, close the market early. So another thing that we are seeing is extreme heat. Um, this is tricky. This is not something that we have canceled market for. We always make sure to have cold water on site. So I'll go to a gas station and get a few bags of ice. We have a cooler. And generally on these hot days, um, I'm handing out water for free to vendors. Um, we really ask vendors to bring as much water as possible for themselves and their team. I'm giving out water to public, checking in with people. All of our staff know signs of heat stroke. So if you see someone that looks like they could be, confused or suffering from heat exhaustion, maybe they've stopped sweating. Um, we know that that is another reason to maybe bring someone into the shelter in place location, bring someone into a location that has access to air conditioning, get them fluids. But again, we really try to prevent it from getting to that level. So just making sure you're checking in on vendors, telling people to bring cool towels, to bring hats, to bring sunscreen, to just really make sure that they are protecting themselves as best they can. And then we have a Club Sprouts, which is our kids activity at the market. And if it was really hot, we may cancel Club Sprouts as another way to kind of deter parents from bringing kids out into the heat. By decreasing programming, you can also deter the public from bringing like at-risk populations out to your market, which is something you're always wanting to do. Okay, so lightning and rainstorms. Determine your thresholds for closure. So I think this map is on. Okay, here. So let's go over this for a second and then I'll go back to the other slides. So these are our thresholds. So this is not like days before. So ideally in this case, an email has gone out to vendors. Hey, I'm seeing the risk of storms on Saturday morning. Stay alert for more communication from us. If I'm seeing like a high chance of bad storms in the morning during setup, the best thing that I think market managers can do is to just delay setup. Say, for this Saturday, I'm going to delay the start time by an hour, delay setup time for an hour because I don't want you all setting up in severe weather. You can delay start by 2 hours. I mean, none of this is ideal. I think that's the other thing. Like it's such a bummer to have to delay market start. But again, you need to be thinking about the safety of the public and your vendors. Best case scenario too is if you delay start, you're not having to cancel market. So there can still be a market and vendors can still sell their product. The worst case scenario is to be out there in a storm, people's products gets ruined, tents get ruined, somebody gets hurt. It turns into a whole disaster. We want to prevent that. So this is our sort of chart that all the vendors have and all the staff has. So if there is lightning, hail, or wind of 35 miles or more, if any of this is occurring within 20 miles, I'm sending out an alert. There is a text message going out through our emergency text service to vendors. Generally, I'm just kind of running around the market like, hey, you might want to start reducing your setup because there is a chance that we're going to get hit by a storm and we're going to have to shelter in place. again, remain alert for potential closure, but I'm going to recommend you start maybe condensing your setup to 110 if you have two up, or if you're only under 110 to put some of your product away to prepare to potentially have to shelter in place. If there is lightning, hail, or wind, I actually think we changed this in this year's because of what happened last year, we changed this to 15 miles, within 15 miles, because the storm went from 10 miles to right on top of us within no time, and it just gives us a little bit more breathing room. Um, and at this threshold of within 10 to 15 miles, we are breaking down, we are sheltering in place. The language here is yes, option to stop sales, but at this point, I am encouraging people to stop sales. And then the market closure threshold, this has also changed to within 10 miles. If there is a tornado siren, if there is lightning, 10 to 15 miles away, we are closing. And again, this is the worst case scenario. This is not never an easy decision to make. And again, we are just thinking about the safety. And again, high winds, flooding, extreme heat, all of this is laid out here and laid out very clearly for our vendors so that we're all on the same page. And we have vendors sign off that they've read this at the beginning of the season. Because I think part of this is just communicating as clearly as possible to limit disappointment. Are there any questions on our thresholds? Okay, I'm gonna go back a few slides. So yeah, so this language, the radius as a threshold. So if there is lightning within 10 miles, we're going to start asking people to consolidate their setup. With flooding, we have puddles all the time. Flash flooding is not really a risk at our market locations, but if flash flooding is a risk, like if you're near a river, that is something that you need to be seriously considering. Um, yeah, and just really make sure you and all your vendors know where that shelter in place location is. Weights. Okay. I have to do weight checks frequently. Um, we have some wonderful, wonderful vendors who love to just stick one kettlebell on that little edge of their tent. It's not tied on. They just kind of set it there. Unfortunately, that is not going to keep a tent on the ground if it gets windy. So I'd really recommend you're, very clearly and evenly enforcing those weight rules and do weight checks. Just walk around. Again, I think my market manager style, I try to keep it a little humorous. I don't want anyone to feel like I am policing them in any way. All of our vendors are business owners, and I really respect that, they are doing what's best for their business. And so if I'm doing a weight check and somebody just has just um, you know, is majorly breaking the rules because their tent weights are sloppy, like a 5 pound kettlebell just on the corner of a weight, you can be kind of goofy about it. You don't have to ask someone to take their tent down if winds aren't high. I try not to be punitive, I guess, but just kind of being like, dude, you know better. Is this, because people are smart. And I think if you point it out in a nice way, people are receptive. But tent weights are very important. And I don't know about y'all's locations, market locations, but I feel like as weather has been getting more extreme, like we're seeing these extreme highs, like in the 80s yesterday, and then back to the 50s today, it's creating a lot more wind. So just really making sure that folks understand on a non-windy day the importance of weights. Air quality, another thing that has popped up in recent years with the wildfires in Canada. As you can see, Sweet Oriana in this picture has a mask on. We really try to um, communicate with folks that they will never be punished if they feel that a weather condition is unsafe or unhealthy for them. If you can't make it to market because the air quality is too bad, no worries, just let us know. We always keep masks on site so that folks can grab those if they need them. Another option is reducing programming. You can reduce the hours of your market. Maybe you start it a little bit later and close it a little bit earlier. Just make sure you're really communicating that with the public, because again, we want vendors to be making all the sales that they can. And if the public doesn't know that there's a decrease in hours, they're going to show up when you all are closed. So just over communicate with vendors, use your social media or your email list to communicate if you're having to reduce hours due to poor air quality. Huh. Yeah. Okay, and again, here is this, and in the link I sent you to our emergency action plan, it's all in there. But yes, these are the thresholds that we use, and just really, really try to stick by them and enforce them. And yeah, I've become a big forecast nerd. You gotta when you work outside. Okay, medical incidents. So again, I think this is another common incident we see because we're dealing with the public. We all know the closest hospitals. And I think the big thing too is to just keep people calm and safe until first aid can arrive. I can help somebody with a skinned knee. You know, I can help a vendor who maybe cuts their finger while trying to slice an apple to sample out. But I think you also just have to know that there are some medical situations that you cannot and should not deal with. Um, we had somebody last year pass out from heat exhaustion, and we got her seated and comfortable, and called 911 because she needed care. Make sure that you are documenting info, getting name, getting phone number, um, getting an address, making sure that you're not leaving somebody alone that's experiencing a medical emergency, staying with them, maybe getting them water if that would help, a snack, you're at a farmer's market, there's food. I think getting getting creative in your assistance and planning for it, like having chairs on site, foldable chairs that you can bring over to a customer. Um, Again, letting vendors know who to call if somebody's at their booth not feeling well, so that they don't have to leave the person. They could just call you and you can run over and help. Um, and then ultimately being comfortable calling 911 when there's a medical emergency. Um, yeah, any questions here? We keep a first aid kit on site. Um, I cannot give out any ibuprofen or medication, but I can give out band-aids, encouraging vendors who may have allergies to carry the meds that they need, hoping that the public does the same. Yeah, but keeping a first aid kit on site, very necessary and important. And making sure it's stocked. Okay, this one's always a little sad and stressful. If there is a missing person or a found child, again, this is something we see at the market. Sweet little kids that are excited because they're at the market, they get distracted, they wander away, and suddenly a parent turns around. Oh my gosh, where's little Timmy? He's gone. It's scary, it's stressful. And your job as the market manager is to remain calm. Do not publicize this identifying info because that will make a child more at risk if somebody with bad intentions knows a kid's missing. The kid is without oversight. That may be a motivator to it endangers the child more. So let your team know. You can let trusted vendors know. We we'll have parents wait at the info booth, um, or parents will generally be out looking for the kid. So you can be like, we are also going to be looking for this kid because we know the identifying info. We're going to meet back up at our info tent should this child be found. Um, and then also being sure to document this. We have um, incident reports. So if somebody goes missing, and also every time a child has gone missing, they have been found. There was an 11-year-old kid who walked himself home. that was horrible. His grandparents were watching him, and a lot of time had gone by, and then he was like, what was the big hullabaloo? I just wanted to go and play video games. So we are very, very lucky that a kid has always that a missing child has always been found. But yeah, make sure that staff knows that this is a situation that comes up at farmers market. Establish a central meeting location. Another time that you may probably should, if enough time goes by, call 911, because the sooner that this stuff is reported, the higher probability there is of a child being safe. Okay, and one that is not fun to talk about, and is an unfortunate reality in the world we live in, is an active assailant. Um, these are in order of operations. Run. If you are able, run. Um, I think to get loud, yell, warn people that there's an active assailant, but run. If you can't run, hide. Last resort, if you can't run and you can't hide, fight. Um, and this note at the bottom, this is the same for any active assailant, regardless of the weapon. So a gun or a knife, you are running, you are hiding, and then you are fighting. Another thing that we've had to start thinking about, one of our markets is in a street. We have permit pulled for the street, and we have vendor trucks park on the entrance on either side of the street, because cars are like car terrorism. People have driven through markets. So again, not fun to talk about, but again, it's like so important to prepare. So if you're on a street, find some vendors with big box trucks, ask them to park on either end. And frankly, some of our vendors really love parking their truck there because it's very easy for load in and load out because your truck is right there. Um, but that is very important if you're on a street. Any questions here about the run, hide, fight? Okay, and then notify 911. This again goes with the active assailant slide. What you are saying is your name, your location, who needs assistance, and the nature of the emergency and your phone number. So, again, sorry, I said this is for active assailants. This sort of is all inclusive, but this is what you need to be able to relay to 911. Make sure you know your address. Make sure to know how to best direct 911 to your market, because sometimes markets can be in silly spots that might be hard to direct. So make sure prior to having to call 911, you know where you need 911 to go. And I think it's important to remember that you do not want to be moving. If there's a medical emergency, you do not want to be moving somebody unless it's absolutely necessary. Just if somebody can move, get them to a shaded spot. But I think most importantly is just getting somebody seated on the ground, keep folks comfortable, and remain on the scene until somebody arrives. And I see a question in the chat. Does anyone have paid security at their market? What does that look like for your market? Great question, Jennifer. If anybody else wants to share, please feel free. I will share that at our market, we, yes, have hired security. We have one security personnel at each location, and they're there with us from setup to breakdown. And yeah, it's just sort of served as another set of eyes for myself and the market team. We use HLSA in Chicago, and yeah, somebody else to just kind of walk around, keep eyes, um, look out for anything that might feel a little off or weird. I think too, with a security guard, they're wearing like a vest that says security. And so sometimes for certain people, they will take that person more seriously than they will take me, which is also nice. And a security guard is trained in all of this sort of like de-escalation training. A security guard will be trained. So yes, we do have a security guard. This is a more recent addition to our market. I think we've had a security guard for 3 or 4 years. And I'm really grateful. Does anybody else on the chat or on the call um have the help of a security guard?
I don't think anybody else on the call, at least, is volunteering that. But what I've seen and heard most recently is, in light of the current climate, um, local police departments are more willing to make numerous stops at your market and just walk through during market hours without having to go to the additional expense of hiring security. I've seen it a lot more recently than I had, um, in previous years. So I think that's another alternative, is to build that partnership.
Janie, that's a really good point. And I think too, like farmers markets are friends of the park district. Farmers markets are friends of the community. It is just a wonderful way to add value to a community. It's a third space. It's a place for people to meet. It's an activity for kids. It's a way to support farmers. And I do think, um, if you can't afford that extra expense, there are just many ways that you could involve the park district or the local police department in helping you kind of secure your market. I think that's a great point, Janie. Um, oh, that's really cool. The free lunch coupons, Dale. Thank you for sharing that. Just as like a little thank you. I love that. A little thank you to the local police and fire department to visit the market. I love that. Okay, sorry, and I'm looking at the time. We have about 9 minutes left, so I'll try to speed it up so there's time for questions. So create your plan. Make that plan, make that document, download that PDF, and share it out widely. You want your staff, volunteers, vendors, sponsors, law enforcement, and anybody that you need to go to for a permit. Everyone should have access to your emergency action plan. I also think that it'll make these different stakeholders take your market seriously. Like, all right, they know what they're doing. We don't even have to ask about their emergency action plan because here it is. Because ultimately, public safety is so important. And I think having that implemented just really, really shows how thoughtful you're being in your market planning. Make sure everybody signs off on this plan. We have all our vendors sign it at the beginning of the year. Um, and the hope is that then when we are having to enact parts of our emergency action plan, it's not a surprise. And then we print copies, and there's a binder at market so that we have access to it so that we can look it over. We can show people if there are questions. Just, yeah, always have that on site. So we have okay, so these are some like services that we use. Again, I think Janie and Dale both presented really good options of contacting your local police or fire department, contacting the park district, seeing if there's a way that they can help out. Yes, we do pay for security, which is definitely cost prohibitive. Um, So we also use an emergency text service. Again, not necessary. We have a lot of vendors in different locations, so it is easy to just have this one service. But you could also just create a group chat, a group text that is only used for emergencies so that you could just send out an emergency, send out an emergency text, send out an email. Just be sure that you've thought through the way that you're going to disseminate this information should folks need to shelter in place. Oh, and there's a Department of Homeland Security assessment, which is free. And then on the right is a picture of what our emergency text service looks like so that we can send day of updates to vendors. And I don't think this text service is necessary. I think you totally can just be ready to send out a group chat to all your vendors or an email or a megaphone. Big fan of the megaphone. Those are powerful. We each have a radio, all of the market staff, and one goes to the security guard, which is a great way to communicate. It's also just nice to not be on our phones all the time. The radio just feels a little bit more efficient for getting in touch with each other. And I don't know. I personally think it's a better look. I don't want our vendors and customers to think I'm like always on my phone. And so I think the radio just really gets the point across, and it's quick, you know. Big fan of the radios, and then the bullhorn, also fun and powerful, depending on the size of your market, can be a really effective way to get out announcements. I'd recommend investing in one for sure. So this again, this is a QR code to our emergency action plan. This emergency action plan is the one that I sent the link to in the chat is our exact emergency action plan. This action plan is more for the public, or like a template. So not all the information is exactly correct to our market. It's more it's a little bit more open-ended for you to customize as you need. Um, but yeah, please look at the one I sent in the chat, and I can see if I can send it again, because I think that just might give you a good idea of what we're working with this year. And every year I go through it and change it. I meet with some coworkers. We always open it up for feedback at the end of the year from vendors, like, how did our market regulations work for you? How did our emergency action plan work for you? Um, because vendors are just such a valuable resource. They are generally at multiple markets and they are seeing the way other markets do things. They're the ones who these rules and regulations are impacting. So really getting their feedback, I think, creates a really like healthy market environment. And again, they're seeing things that we're not. And so it's just been like such a helpful resource to have vendor input here. Okay. And that's it. This is my email, Hauser@greencitymarket.org. This is me holding a giant butternut squash. I think it was from Nichols. Um, yeah, it has been so fun talking to you all today. And please, 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 please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. No question too small. We have, oops, I'm so chatty. We have about 3 minutes, but if anyone has any questions, anything to